The primer talks about the mechanics that we're talking about. The study, dated every 2 years, updated, just happened this year, about if you took every search fund from the last 40 years, those that acquired and failed, and those, of course, that acquired and had a good exit. If you had done every one of those deals, and we're talking actually less than 1,000 deals over all that time, you would have an ongoing net 35% return. So the upside's better than any other asset class I know. The downside is better than any asset class I know. And what I tell people is, if you've got any thought towards asset allocation, this is pretty non-correlated to your crypto, to your stocks, to your real estate. I would encourage people to have this as a piece of what their overall asset allocation.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ignite podcast. Today, we're thrilled to have Jon Staenberg on the mic. He is a longtime investor, search fund pioneer, a vintner, serial angel, Stanford trifecta grad, and probably among the few people who own both a wine vineyard and tens of thousands of ticket stubs. So we'll find out about that. He lives at the intersection of small business acquisition, big ideas, and passion projects. Let's dive in. Thanks for coming, Jon.
Brian, great to be here. That maybe is the most poetic intro anyone's ever given me on a podcast. So kudos to you.
No, it's ChatGPT, and it's a bunch of prompting. You know, we're on episode 200 and something now, right? So like I've built up this like nice intro prompt over hundreds of episodes. So thank you, Sam Altman. I'd love to get your origin story. What's your background?
Yeah, it's very Mayberry RFD. Your listeners probably don't even know what that is, but
I barely know what that is.
Yeah, I grew up in a place where, mom said, come back for dinner, otherwise I don't need to hear from you. And we kept the keys in the ignition and didn't lock the front door. And that was Omaha, Nebraska when I was growing up. And
Wow.
it was kind of awesome. And I was a tennis player, so spent a lot of time at the courts and had a really tight-knit group of friends who played tennis with me every day and liked school and liked my family and liked my friends. That's my origin story. Having said that, I also came from a family of entrepreneurs. My dad was, I think, the first garden apartment developer in Omaha, Nebraska, which means he figured out you had to put a little pool in the middle of apartments, and that made it a garden apartment.
Well, low-rise kind of suburban apartments. Yeah,
exactly. And a couple shopping centers. And then my mom later took over that business, and she put on, when timeshares were a thing, they were going to be a clearinghouse for timeshares. So always a lot of ideas, a lot of our own version of startups. So I was always comfortable around people willing to take risk and pursue dreams. And so I had good models for that. And then the other piece that I always mention is Warren Buffett, being from Omaha. And he has influenced me my whole life. We were lucky enough to go to Uncle Warren's house before Warren was Warren. We didn't know he was going to be who he became, but just being around that was cool. My mom was close friends with his wife. So I think all those things are very much part of my origin story. And then when I went to college, it was really a very simple choice. It was how far from Omaha could I get? I've always been kind of a traveler.
Kind of limited by the oceans.
Yeah, well, right. Either it was going to be east or west, basically. But that's more about me being a traveler and wanting to see the world. And so I ended up on the West Coast at Stanford, and that was super eye-opening. And again, it put me in touch with and surrounded me with entrepreneurship and people doing cool things. I'm easily inspired. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but I'm a journalist at heart, and I want to hear everybody's story. I'm kind of jealous that you do podcasts. It's something I've always thought I would love doing.
Oh, it's so amazing. Why don't you do a podcast? I mean, you should totally do it. Even if you think you might like it, you should just try it. Give it 10 episodes,
I have thought about that. I may come back to you on that, especially because in my world of search funds, honestly, searcher stories are amazing.
Right?
They're amazing.
What's your favorite search fund story to tell?
Well, there's a version of a search fund story that I've heard more than once, which is someone who grew up in a small town, let's call it Mexico for this version, tens of thousands of people, if not less. Nobody had ever gone to college. right? They end up being the first to go to college and then work their way up to Harvard Business School or Stanford Business School. They're doing this because they want the American dream. The American dream is alive and well. They want to take care of their family. They're driven, they're gritty, they're motivated. That's just my favorite version. Like, I don't get tired of hearing that version all day long, all week long.
That's my version, but I went to Berkeley instead of Harvard and grew up.
It's the Harvard of the East Bay.
Yeah, so Harvard of the East Bay. But yeah, that's my origin story, right? Growing up poor, welfare, expelled from school, like had a decision to make. Do I want to like end up like my mom who was all messed up and kind of go that path or kind of do something else? And it was like really a breaking point in sophomore year when I got expelled for this latter
You'd
half.
probably be a good search funder.
Yeah, well, I'm a pretty good VC. I'd like to think.
No, but you get it. Like, you recognize those traits in others.
Right.
And at the end of the day, people always say,
I recognize like the chip on the block.
Yeah.
Like that driven.
That chip, like I got something to prove.
And you could be cool. You could be cool and a nice guy, but you just have some fire in your belly. There's something in there where I can, and it's hard to explain that to like my LPs when I talk to them. They're like, what makes you like special or different? And I'm like, well, let me tell you my story and how that makes it so I can identify great founders. Right?
I love that. I love that because I don't always have the easiest time explaining search funds to people. I also you'll hear me call.
What is this? Yeah, what is a search fund?
I was just going to say.
Yeah.
It is also,
I mean, I think I know, but like, let's explain it for the audience. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'll probably be talking about it a fair amount. I'm also going to call it ETA, which is entrepreneurship through acquisition. And so what is it? Let's start there. Go back to how I got there. But it's really the notion, especially the way we do it, which is very narrow and very niche. It's the notion that you go to one of the better business schools, Harvard, Stanford, Booth, Wharton, blah, 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 and you take the class. So you learn what it means to go and do this search that can take up to 2 years, trying to acquire a good, boring mom and pop business that you will then run. So what that means is I'm looking for electricians, plumbers, dental clinics, med spas, that sort of
laundromats.
I mean, yeah, we don't generally do laundromats, interestingly enough, but that could be for sure. Yeah. We're looking for.
That might be like more like roll up private equity.
Yeah, and also we're not doing roll ups generally. I'll call us the micro PE play. The micro PE play with an extraordinarily good playbook, with extraordinarily good people around the table investing, coaching, mentoring, training the entrepreneur to success. And I think people, you made the comment, people don't understand sometimes when you say you get it, you see it. If I could take everybody to the Harvard ETA conference and have them meet 20 searchers who would have the origin story we're just talking about, they would get it immediately. And I need to figure out, maybe the podcast is the right way, like you said, to help people show this story. But it turns out in America, and I did venture for a long time, we can talk about that. But what I love about America is it does a few things extraordinarily well. And small business in America is the best in the world. And if you come in and you say, I'm going to work my you-know-what off, and I'm going to follow the rules, the system generally works for you. Right.
I mean, the tax code is kind of written for small business owners and real estate owners.
Right. That's right.
The regulations are pretty minimal on small business. Much more onerous.
You get things done quickly. That's right. That's not true in most of the world, by the way.
Right. Yeah.
And in fact,
in some places in the world, if you fail in business, they'll throw you in jail.
That's 100% correct. And we also have this moment with the greatest wealth transfer in the history of the world, right? The silver tsunami, the boomers needing transition. In most countries, there's a boomer demographic, and most countries, they're just going to shut their doors. We're lucky in this country because people who have spent generations in some cases, but have spent decades building up a business, they actually will get to see the fruits of their labor, the value that they have created. But that's not true in most places. So it honestly, people have asked me, why am I doing this? Because it's not a big fund and I've had a good career. I'm doing it because I so believe that it can change the world. It is people who actually have hope that if they do play by the rules, if they do follow the path that is well laid out, that they can get ahead. They can obtain the American dream. They can take care of their family and they can be part of the social fabric of what is America. For me, so I had this conversation today with a military veteran. I said, the people that we generally see who want to do this, because most people don't, it's hard as hell. People who do this are generally first generation immigrants, military people who can follow a playbook by like nobody else and who understand what it takes to climb the mountain, or kids of small business owners who at the dinner table would talk about what that meant, or they would go work in that business in the summer or whatever exposure they might have. So those are the types of people I get to be around and invest in and work with. And it's just sheer joy for me to do that.
That's super fun. Well, let's talk about the mechanics of a search fund versus a VC fund. How are they similar and how are they different?
Agate Hound, which is the name of my fund, is the world's only fund, institutional fund of funds for search. We all hate the word search fund because it sounds like that's a fund like a VC fund. It's not. The mechanics are I graduate from, make it up, Stanford. I've taken the classes. I've been to the conferences. It's my second year. I'm graduating and I say, okay, I'm going to raise my hand and I want to do a search fund. I have to go find 12, 15 investors to put on my cap table who are going to put a smallish, say $50,000 check in, who basically are buying an option on me and the acquisition opportunity. And they give me up to 2 years to find a company to acquire to run. Over a third of the time, the searcher does not find something. And that's them doing it full time, day in, day out, grinding on it. So, as an aside, when people say to me, I think I'll go buy a small business, I just look at them and I say, oh, good luck. Yeah, what are you going to get in your newspaper? Biz buy, sell.
You're going to buy somebody else's problem, most likely.
Yeah. And so the magic of our niche is that we're basically the Y Combinator of micro cap private equity. What do I mean by that? We filter for the best by going to these great business schools. We then make sure anybody who thinks they want to do us, we scare them off, most of them, by showing them how damn hard it is. And if you still want to do it, you got to go find and convince 15 very experienced investors. And they're basically almost always the same investors. These guys, it's not like venture where there's 10,000 fund managers. There's a very small, maybe 50 investors who invest in these searches. And so what that means is by the time you get a search fund done, you've gone through that whole thing. And then those people around the table who have looked at collectively 1,000 deals, who have worked together collectively for hundreds of years, are not going to let you sneak one past because your 2 years is running out. They're going to like, no, that does not look like a good deal to us. And we've seen a lot of good deals.
Interesting. So it's more like a syndicate model in a way.
It is.
Where you're kind of forming the syndicate. It's kind of like an accelerator. You find an operator, and then you kind of put the operator work to go acquire a business. And then you have a pool of capital to go put the equity up.
That's correct.
And execute the deal.
If it's a good deal. Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
But the syndicate gets to choose now. I will put my 50, 100K, 250K, whatever I committed to this search fund to go acquire this business.
Right. But so the 50 then gets first right of refusal on the larger check. So they say, okay, I love you as an operator. I love this opportunity. I like the multiple on EBITDA. I like the recurring revenue. I like the growing profitability. I'm going to put 500 to $1 million in the actual acquisition. So I bought the option here. I got to know the entrepreneur, the searcher, and then I get to look at the ultimate acquisition. You asked me, the question was, how is it different from venture? Well, I assume in my telling of that, you can think of a lot of ways that's different than venture. No, 24-year-old showing up saying, hey, this is a really hot deal. If you don't want to sign it today at these terms, at my made up valuation, that's fine. I've got 20 other people who are going to do it. Now,
that sounds like YC Demo Day.
Yeah, exactly. Overstating it to make the point, but you understand exactly what I'm talking about. And I think part of the thing that's frustrated me over the years with venture is that there's a bit of a misalignment. And the example I like to give is I've been an angel investor in a lot of deals.
Like how many deals? Like what's your...
Hundreds.
Hundreds? Yeah. Nice.
Hundreds of deals. As many probably as Ron Conway, but a lot.
I aim to out invest Ron Conway at the end of my career. I'm up to almost 300 now. So
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm 5 years in. But
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
accelerating. I'm accelerating.
So, as you know, one of the great things, this is the power law. When all things work, it works great. We don't have a power law in search. You know, if the graph in venture is fail, 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 maybe a little win, and then you get ours is very few fail, lots in the middle, 2 to 5, 6x, and
More of a
maybe
bell
one.
curve, more of a normal distribution versus like this power law.
Yeah, because you're buying a profitable company. We don't have burn rates. We don't have second rounds. And the alignment, one of my favorite things is that the entrepreneur gets generally 25 to 27% equity at the end of the day in the deal. If A, they acquire, they get a third. They get another third if they're there for X amount of time, say 4 years, and another third, and this is my favorite, if the investors get 25%.
Interesting. So let's
IRR, by the
yeah.
way, which is time based. So we don't have 20-year holds. The entrepreneur or the searcher is saying, this is going well. I need to get this sold and get my investors their money. So I get my money. We're all aligned. So
Interesting. So
I love that.
what's the time horizon look like? So you got the 2 years of searching
Five, 6. Yeah.
for a full on liquidity event. So that's pretty attractive to LPs
Yes.
because you're kind of capping both the upside and the downside. What's a good search fund look like in terms of multiple over that 5 to 7 year?
Well, the thing I would encourage you and or your audience is mandatory reading is search for the Stanford primer on search funds and the Stanford study. The primer talks about the mechanics that we're talking about. The study is an updated, every 2 years, updated, just happened this year, about if you took every search fund from the last 40 years, those that acquired and failed, and those, of course, that acquired and had a good exit, if you had done every one of those deals, and we're talking actually less than 1,000 deals over all that time, you would have an ongoing net 35% return. So the upside's better than any other asset class I know. The downside is better than any asset class I know. And what I tell people is if you've got any thought towards asset allocation, this is pretty non-correlated to your crypto, to your stocks, to your real estate. I would encourage people to have this as a piece of what their overall asset allocation.
Totally makes sense. How big is the industry?
Small.
Yeah.
I mean, as I mentioned, there's been 900 acquisitions to date, maybe, I don't know, 1,400 searches. There's been, I'm going to be slightly off, but just to give you scale, less than 2 billion invested. I mean, there are venture funds that are 100 billion,
Right.
single investor, right?
Right.
And you know, there's been something like 8 billion returned. But for sure, it's having a golden moment because of the
I'm
COVID.
hearing the term more out there.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And I have MBA, colleagues. I got an MBA from Berkeley, and I have at least 2 off the top of my head are trying to do this. So
yeah,
maybe they'll be the right entrepreneur for you to make an intro to. Yeah,
love to talk to them. I am very, very a search fund generically is someone who says I'm going to go find a small business and buy it and run it. We believe in the YC playbook version of this, the ETA, Stanford, Harvard. But the truth of the matter is, as jobs change in the world, as options for MBAs coming out change in the world, as people are getting laid off, people are saying, hey, maybe I should go buy a company. I honestly think 95% of the people that say that to me have no clue. That's probably strong, but really underestimate how difficult. I've actually I owned a chain of car washes. I've owned a winery. I had college businesses. I know what it takes. You don't see me saying I need to go buy a business. I want to go find
I
the
had a small
people.
business I had a sunglass store in Waikiki, little Brian Bell lore here. I had 2 locations with 30 employees, and it was like really tough to run. It was really tough to run, and I was like killing myself to make like 10 grand a month.
Yeah.
Just like so much work. And I was like, I think I'll just go work in big tech.
Well, and honestly, my gratitude's one word, but my just overall, how a good manager is just such a rarity, such a superstar, and less in this world that we live in do people understand what it takes to be a great manager. It's been de-emphasized, I think. And so, what happens is you take this entrepreneur, and sometimes it's two. Now people partner on these searches, but they go in there and they acquire this company, and then they have 10 people around them who have all actually run companies before. YPO has that forum concept. More of us in life should have forums, should have people we can call upon for whatever, right? But
Tell us more about that. What is that, the YPO forum concept?
so Young Presidents Organization is basically a group of successful business leaders around the world. And they're generally located in the cities or towns. As part of the program, everyone joins a forum where there's 6 to 10 people meeting on a monthly regular basis. And they share tough stuff and they share their businesses and
It's like
they
a mastermind group, kind of.
it's a mastermind group.
Yep.
And they are without doubt one of the most effective ways for people to continue to be successful and to get the resources they need when times are tough. Because I guarantee it, there is nobody gets out alive in that sense. Everybody's going to go through tough times. So having support, having a support group, having people you can trust is extremely important. And it's institutionalized into ETA.
It's amazing. How did you end up here? I mean, you had a variety of degrees from my notes from Stanford. Maybe you could talk about that, and then talk
Sure.
about that journey and what was, the bridge from studying all these things, disparate things, to doing what you do now, and what happened in the middle. And yeah, I'd love to hear that whole
Yeah,
backstory.
I have always gone to where others aren't. What they say, hit them where they ain't is a baseball expression. I'm a sports fan. Gosh.
I'm just joking. The
So,
Mariners.
so
I'm from Seattle, and the Mariners just lost, so heartbroken. But
so
yeah,
painful. You have no
yeah.
idea. It still hurts. But the concept, I went into venture when venture was not a term. When you would literally go in San Francisco and say, "Oh, I do venture," and people would look at you like, "What does that even mean?" It wasn't that long.
Where you adventuring? What are you talking about?
Yeah, right, right.
You're like Indiana
And
Jones or something? Like, what does that mean?
and then you tell people, "Oh yeah, I fully expect to lose my money on most of the deals we invest in." And then they get that like, "You're from Mars," or "You have three eyes," or some kind of look like, "I don't understand." And we fast forward to today, and people are like, "Oh yeah, venture. Got to do venture." That changed. But I knew 30 years ago, I just knew. I knew it was going to be a big thing. I knew technology rollout was at the beginning. I knew the world was going to change. And so, just based on those obvious trends to me at the time, I inserted myself into that world. And I never had huge funds, but I was around for an awful lot of interesting moments and investments and people. And so I've always said I've been lucky as hell to have a front row, the Diamond Club seat for the changing of the world through technology. I kind of feel like search funds are that moment right now. They've been around for a while, but because of the boomers, because of AI, which is going to change small business, and because people are going to have to start thinking differently about what their career path is, this is an opportunity. And no one had done a fund of funds. And so I'm like, I'm going to be that person. I want to be in the middle of it. What's interesting is the people who have invested in search funds are kind of the same people that they've been for decades because they've had it so good. And they actually, honestly, were probably pretty happy not to have anybody else know about it, be involved with it, because they were making a lot of money. And they did a great job. I mean, they deservedly made a lot of money. They supported smart people and, had a model that is extremely good. But I think the word's out. The word's out. And what I mean by that is up until 13 years ago or so, only Harvard, only Stanford taught ETA. Today in the US, I think there's 27 business schools teaching it. It is being taught on 6 different continents. I just got back from Oktoberfest, where I did drink a little beer, and
As one does.
as one does.
Out
But I
of
was
a
also
glass boot.
out of a glass boot. Das Boot. And I actually talked on search funds there. And I'll be going to a conference in Barcelona later. And so it's happening all over the world. And people are starting to say, okay, that's a pretty interesting path that I didn't realize was even available to me. So I think, how did I get here? I did venture for 30 years and I said, great run. I'm not sure I know how to do venture in the way I used to do it. I don't know that I have the same energy for it. I mean, you've already done 300 deals. That's kind of wild. And, I think back to when we were doing enterprise software deals where the first couple $1 million was nothing more than buying servers and racks,
Yeah, just to get
right?
the website up. Yeah,
Just to get the website up.
yeah.
So that world, and truthfully, venture today has so many moving pieces and so many emerging managers that I give people who can navigate that a ton of credit. It's just I didn't feel like I had an edge.
Mm.
That's always been my question. Like, what's my edge? Why should someone interact with me on this? And I've now done search funds for 8 years. I've been to 20 search fund conferences. I've done a ton of podcasts and speaking and some teaching. I think I know it. I mean, I'm always learning, to be clear. That's one of the things I love about it. And that's one of the
Yeah.
reasons that's always been part of whatever path I have chosen has been the learning element. Because I get bored, not easily, but do get bored. And so I like learning. And then I like the game of business. And this is a really fun game of business. And I like the people I'm involved with. So, I mean, that's kind of how I got here. And it turns out I have this idea that I want to live in Europe for part of the year. I can do that there. I can help propagate it in Europe.
Whereabouts in Europe?
I'm going to get my golden visa, I think, in Portugal. Mostly for my daughter, who may at some point in her life want to live and work over there. But it's Spain or Portugal. It's
Yeah,
probably be
great.
my place.
Got a couple friends in Portugal now, actually, and
Oh yeah, well, I'll be there for
a third friend on the
Web
way.
Summit.
Yeah,
We'll have to sync up on that. It's lovely, and it's just different. I love our country. I'm not about to abandon America, but it's nice to have that perspective too, the historical perspective of centuries that they have. I appreciate the pace. I appreciate some of the tranquility, and I'm a foodie, and as you mentioned, I have a winery, so I like to indulge in those things.
the winery. What's the backstory there? How did you come to get into wine? And
I have a pretty high risk tolerance. I guess that would be part of how I got here too. And I remember my goal has always been actually to try at least one new country a year for as long as I can still travel. And back
that's a
in
great goal. I love that.
I want to get a different
Yeah,
perspective every year. And I don't care where it is. I've been to approximately 100 countries. It was 2007 and Argentina was kind of hot. Friends were like, you got to go to Argentina. It's cheap, it's fun, it's sexy, the food, the culture, the vibe. So I'm like, all right, let's go. So I went down there and looked up a Stanford classmate. He said, yeah, come out to my winery in Mendoza. And I'm like, oh, that'll be easy. And then I realized that actually wasn't that easy. It's far across the country, but I'm like, all right, this will be fun. It's an adventure. And I do like to bring adventure into my life. And so I went out to see Santiago at 10 a.m. At 4 a.m., after 5 bottles of wine and an asado, which is a barbecue.
I mean, not 5 bottles to yourself. I mean, there's other people there, I hope.
Don't ask, don't tell. I said, Santiago, your wine is the best wine I've ever had in my life. The land here is beautiful. The mountains here are beyond beautiful. If I bought a little land, would you make the wine? And Hand of God was born. And it's been a great journey. I mean, truth of the matter is,
So you met some people down there, and you're like, "Hey, I'll fund this if you guys will go grow this wine."
yeah, that's
So
essentially
you started
it.
with just dirt, like a plot of dirt.
We started with a plot of dirt.
Wow,
Actually,
amazing.
pretty big plot. And I've sold off most of the winery and most of the land. But if anybody listening to this wants to go to Argentina, be sure to hit me up and I'll give you some. Oh, Brian's putting a trip together.
I haven't been. Yeah, I haven't been. I've been to Chile.
Chile's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, and the wine there was amazing. I've been to
Yeah.
Peru. Yeah, I've never been to Argentina.
Yeah.
Colombia.
And so, again, running a small business, I had to figure out all the logistics of making the wine and forming a business there and
Where's the name come from?
Hand of God.
Yeah.
It is the most iconic World Cup name in the history of the world. It's when in 1986, Diego Maradona hit a ball off his hand and Argentina won the World Cup. But because there was no instant replay, the ref was shielded from the play. And so afterwards they said, "Come on, Diego, that went off your hand." He said, "No, no, no, that went off the hand of God," which is a very funny statement
That's
because
great.
he often thought of himself as God. So you don't actually know in that reference if he's talking about.
It's
So
probably a double entendre. He's
it
like
is
kind
a
of poking
double
fun
act.
at himself a little bit.
Yeah.
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 But also kind
So
of, stroking his own ego. Yeah.
So it's fun. Been in it for 18 years. I met great people. I've hosted literally thousands of dinners. I opened a restaurant around it. I've been lucky to imbibe with some other winemakers and great wine. And I call the business kind of a lifestyle pornography business because you get to see the rich and famous. Not that I was, but just to be in that world was really fun. And as you know, my friend Zach, we do these dinners in San Francisco. So of course I always serve Hand of God. So it's led to a lot of great relationships and a lot of fun dinners. And that was the goal. I was going to integrate it into my life. Like I like doing things that integrate into my life, just like I did in venture, just like I'm doing with search, just like I did with that.
Yeah, I like that. It takes a long time for people to figure that out, I think. Did you have that figured out like in your 20s, or like at what age did you figure out all the integration?
Good question. I think that I knew early that I was never going to do one straight path, one thing. I wasn't going to be like the Boeing lifetime employee of 50 years. And I also knew that I have an insatiable appetite for doing things and seeing things and experiencing things and overall learning. So how could I was always going, how put this together with that? And it could all be this. And it's probably not the way to create the most amount of wealth or business success, but it's
Yeah.
been so much fun.
Yeah, for me it's been brute force. Like,
Right.
just brute force trying things. I've probably had 100 different 200 different things I've done in my life, just trying things. And I was like, don't like
Yeah, and
this,
you and I, that's true for me, Brian, and that just means our risk tolerance, that our fearless belief that okay, so we fail, I'll get up and do something else, we'll figure it out.
Right.
And even, having been doing business for a long time, I still think that.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean,
Like
honestly, I do a lot of things not knowing what's going to happen in step 3 and 4. I can kind of see out there, so I actually, my lack of vision has and naivete maybe has been the thing that's gotten me through some of these things, or I would never have done them, but I'm okay with it. I mean, I always ask that question, what's the worst that's going to happen? We're going to be okay.
right.
We have friends, we have family, we have skills. We're going to be okay.
Yeah.
So let's go try this.
Yeah. I love that. I spent half of my 20s unemployed traveling around the world. So I can definitely, see myself doing that again. And I also, lived out of a suitcase and a backpack for so many years that none of this stuff really matters.
Right. That's right. My daughter, I'm encouraging her very strongly to take a gap year before she goes to college. It's so obvious to me. But of course, the brain of a 17-year-old is different than someone who's been there, done that. But
Yeah.
I agree. If you've, like the Australians go on their walkabout, they're grounded by the time they're done. Like things have a different perspective. What's important changes, right? You see other people and you see conditions that you can say, oh, that's different than mine. And so I'm such a passionate believer in the power of getting outside your comfort zone, seeing the world. That's been a big part of my life and continues to be.
Yeah. How has your thesis for investing evolved over time? And what I mean by that is, 30 years in venture, now doing the search fund, you've gone from evaluating founders to evaluating entrepreneurs. And what are some commonalities and differences? And, how did you refine that ability to pick winners over time?
My flip answer is that I'm always surprised. I can't tell you, and I've actually asked this question to a number of very sophisticated search fund investors and even venture investors. And, on podcasts like this and interviews, people always want, what's the secret? What's the exam that you give someone and you're going to know if they're great? I think it's the intangibles. What I've learned is never hire on the basis of the recorded answers. Meaning everybody can show you a good resume. Everybody can do a half an hour interview. I want to get them outside. I want to know how, and this is often used, it's not just me, how they treat the server, how they treat the waiter, right? I want to know how comfortable they are going for a walk if that's not something they normally do at an interview. I want to know what's the job that's not on their resume. I want to know what their family situation is. And by the way, a tough family situation doesn't mean they won't succeed. Often quite the opposite, as you know. But I want to know what their tolerance is for risk. I want to know their self-awareness. At the end of the day, I want to know if they have integrity and if they're a nice person. So, and that's not different between the entrepreneur and the founder. Those qualities. But as you and I both know, there's got to be that chip. There's got to be something that's driving this thing hard. And I look for that.
It's
Why?
also like your life experience is all wrapped up and integrated in what you do now, right?
Yes.
And it's hard to like tell somebody, yeah, like just go live my life again and you'll know.
No, it is all wrapped up in it.
Yeah. So that's funny. That's funny how like life wisdom is a real thing and you only get it through lived experiences.
Yeah, and it actually is a lived wisdom, meaning it's not like here are the 10, I get so many of these newsletters, here are the 100 things to do in the next year. Here's the 10 things to practice this week. Sure, all those things are great. But so much of it is this conversation will leave me a different person. I honestly believe that. Like this is every day. I'm a believer in someone once said to me, always allow people to wake up smarter in the morning. So don't hold grudges. B, you're not the same person you were yesterday or tomorrow. So just check in on that, right? And C, have this irrational proclivity to smile, laugh, and be kind, but still go kick ass.
I love that. Such wisdom. How do you balance all this stuff? I mean, you're wearing all these different hats.
I'm not good at it, dude. I would say give me an F. I failed. I'm working on it. It's a work in progress.
Yeah.
There's just too many good things and fun things to do. There's so much,
Yeah.
so much to do.
Like this is what I tell young people. It's like if you're not excited, like just out of your mind excited to do what you're about to do. It's like I'm paraphrasing Steve Jobs, of course, but like just find something else to do. Don't waste your life.
Yeah, and especially in this world where the choices are so abundant, right? I like that Japanese woman writer who talks about, does that item thing give you joy? I check in on that. Like that makes sense to me. If it doesn't give you joy, why do you have it? Why do you do it?
I like that. Yeah.
And then here, the other big piece for me that's obvious, surround yourself with people that give energy, take energy. That is massively important. If you're going as hard as you're going or as I'm going, you're always low on fuel. So you can't be around people that take your last fuel. You've got to be around, you got to give, and you have to be around people that give you. That will be I do these dinners with Zach, and people say, why do you do these dinners? I do it because I get fuel out of it. I got 4 emails this morning. Oh, that dinner was great. Thanks for doing that. I can't wait for the next one. Good karma. I really love that people got something out of that. You can create fuel,
Yeah.
but recognize, like you said, if that's not giving you abundance of joy, move on. And you can create it. And so that's what I'm trying to do. Like I constantly think about, am I creating my best possible self and the best possible adventure? And that's really, I check in on that regularly. Maybe not formally, but regularly. And so I don't know. I'm certainly not balanced in all of this, but I'm having a heck of a lot of fun.
It's amazing. And I see the, is that a little Buddha figurine behind you
It is.
on the shelf? Are you
Yeah.
a meditator? Is that your
I
spiritual
meditate every
practice?
day, every single day.
Nice.
It's
What kind of meditation?
I love Andy. Headspace. I do just Headspace. I do a variety. I
I'm
really
Andy
love.
from Headspace. I can't do the accent, but yeah,
Yeah.
he's great. He's
I've
great.
done it for 10 years. And honestly, it's gotten me through some rough
Yeah,
patches. And it definitely, I have come to believe that the world would be a better place if more people meditated. I really believe that.
100%.
So,
100%. I sought it out in my early 20s because of my troubled childhood. And, I've gone through almost every major form of meditation at this point in my life. I've done the 10-day silent Vipassana retreat.
oh, yeah,
I've
of course. Of course.
done Zazen. I've done, Insight. I went really deep in Tibetan Buddhist meditation for a few years. I was in a teacher training program doing the Lam Rim, the 21 cycle of meditation. And then in my 30s, I did basically just Insight, meditating on breath and sensations and stuff. And then 4 years ago, I got into transcendental meditation, which I always heard of, but never like really looked into. And I wish I would have found that, 20 years ago, because that's been really incredible for me.
I don't tell many people this, but I went to my first TM meditation session when I was 11 years old.
Oh, wow.
My,
So
s-
you're paying.
my,
Oh,
s-
well, yeah, Nebraska. That's, I mean,
well, it's actually
yeah,
Iowa. I know what you're thinking of. Yeah, that's their center. But yeah, so it
right.
actually had a presence in Nebraska, and my
Yeah.
sister was into it, and I'm like, all right, I guess I'll go.
Yeah. Introduced it to my son, my oldest, when he was about 11 or 12. I think it was too early. Yeah. I think 14 or 15 is probably the right age, something like that. But did you, yeah, it just didn't stick. You kind of just went with other meditation techniques.
In the sense that I was clear that that modality was an important one to have as part of others. And right, and I've always been open to the grew up Jewish, but spent a lot of time studying Buddhism. Just I like learning about a lot of Joseph Campbell myth writings.
Right.
Look, I am pretty clear that there's one reality here, but there's a lot of others, and I'm curious about them. And I do
Yeah.
know this, we are way too busy in general, and there's way too many inputs in our life. And just clearing your head and getting some of that blue sky is really healthy. I don't react as quickly or as anxiously as I used to. I just check in with myself and just see what's going on and honor that. And so I appreciate that piece. It's really been life saving. It's
Yeah.
too strong, but really helpful, self life serving for
Well,
sure.
you know what's interesting when you start meditating is you actually realize that you are overreacting and getting super emotional, and then you're like, was I always like that, or is my meditation making me like that? You know what I'm talking
Yeah, I
about?
do.
And then you're like, no, wait, I'm now just aware of it. Crap, I got really angry and I was kind of an asshole. Why did I do that? Like, you know what I'm talking about? Kind of the
I
self discovery.
totally understand. Are you kidding?
And I'm still guilty. Sometimes I flip out and I'm just like, I just flipped out. That was bad. You know, this I've been meditating for almost 25 years, and you know, I'm like, oh, I really lost control there. You
I
know,
love the fact that they call it a practice.
yeah,
That it is something that you just have to practice your whole life because we practice the opposite of it every day, most of the day.
yeah, scrolling, doom scrolling, reacting,
Chatter,
getting
chatter,
emotional.
chatter. Right,
Yeah,
exactly. So I love it.
yeah. I'm actually inspired now to take another run at meditation with my kids and get them on Headspace at the very
They have a
minimum.
good
To
kids section
yeah,
on there, by the way.
yeah. Yeah, I'll probably just go buy a family account and be like, install this. I could talk about meditation for an hour, and I've had meditation teachers on
Oh,
the
you have?
Ignite
I'll have to
podcast
go
before.
back
So,
and
oh yeah,
listen. Great.
yeah, yeah. I had one of the famous TM teachers who taught all the Bridgewater folks and Ray Dalio.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was on the pod. It's like episode like 20 or
Okay.
something. It's a long time ago. Where does the name Agate Hound come from? What is that?
So, you know how hard it is to name things these days? So, I was trying to,
Well, even Team Ignite, right? Like there's an Ignite
of
Ventures.
course.
Of course there is, but we're Team Ignite. And people keep calling us Ignite. I'm like, no, we're Team Ignite. Very
Well,
specifically,
the
it's
funny
Team
thing
Ignite.
is, I was going through like, what am I going to call this? I want to refer to Nebraska because Nebraska is important to me. Go Big Red, go GBR, Huskers. I was trying to come up with variations, and all of them were taken in some form. Like, okay, I can't do that. And then I tried to do stuff with Stanford, but you can imagine Stanford's been taken all over the place. So a friend says, well, what's the state rock of Nebraska? State rock? And it turns out it's an agate. So, and an agate is a kind of gem. And I like the idea, there's a term called a rock hound, someone who goes out looking for gems. And what are we doing? We're trying to find investment gems. And as a side note, agate is also the font in the newspaper for the baseball box score. Very, very small point,
Wow,
but
it's a very
very
esoteric
esoteric,
trivia.
arcane.
Someday I'm going to be sitting in a trivia and I'll be like, agate fun.
So yeah, agate hound, and we had Irish wolfhounds growing up. So for me, there's a good memory in all of that for me, and and it wasn't taken. When people ask me, what's AHF, and I don't want to have a long conversation, I say always have fun.
Well, I could talk to you for another hour, but let's wrap it up with some wrap up
All right.
questions. I hesitate to say rapid fire because I'm okay with long answers. What's an assumption in the search fund ETA world that most people believe, but which you think is wrong?
That a 32-year-old can't run a company, can't be successful, can't buy a company, can't run it, can't be successful. Wrong, 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 wrong. That a 28-year-old, that a 30-year-old, that's just not true. They absolutely can. They can crush it.
The myth. or the misunderstanding is you have to be older and more
Yeah,
experienced.
people generally say, well, how is that person who's never run a company, who is that young, going to be able to do this? They can
That's
because
and
because we
that's part of the
that's
magic right
part
there,
of the
is figuring out
that's right.
who that
That's
is.
right.
It seems to me that you would almost want to run like MBA, like grab people out of their MBAs. That's when people are like willing to really
That's
do
when
some
we're
hard
doing
work.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah. You just go there and you're just like, hey, like, here's this idea, let's go do it.
That's our model.
And they're like, cool. Because what's funny about MBA programs, and I can relate because I did one, as we talked about, is they're really ambitious, but they don't know what to do with it.
That's right. And the great
Yeah.
thing is,
They're so ambitious. They're super smart. They're super hardworking. They're willing to like break down walls, but they don't know what wall to break down.
that's right. And the other piece of it is an MBA, unlike any other graduate program, is all about letting you pivot as a person. You go into any other one, it says, oh, you're an engineer, you're an engineer. You're a lawyer, you're a lawyer. MBA says, oh, what do you want to be? That's kind of great, actually.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. That's so true. If you were starting in venture today, pre-Agate, obviously, Agate, I keep saying Agate, what would you do differently?
I would figure out what my edge was. I would figure out, how am I differentiated from everybody else? And not only differentiated, but how can I add value? How can I source better and how can I add value better? If I can do those things, I will eventually win because I'll get the good deals and there's a virtuous cycle in that.
Right.
I'm impressed with the people who are doing, for example, the Y Combinator funds, where they go in and they pick some of the best startups that go through the cohorts. Because I feel like Y Combinator does get great people, does provide a platform and a set of resources. And there's a really strong, it kind of reminds me of what Silicon Valley was 30 years ago. In the old days, everybody knew everybody, right? Everybody was sharing deal flow. That's kind of what happens in a YC these days. So if I was doing something in venture, I would do something around that concept.
That's so funny. And you didn't mean to make this a commercial for our YC fund, but we're on our second YC fund that we're publicly raising right now. So if anybody's out there looking to invest in a YC fund, that's us. That's our fund 3. But yeah, totally. You're fishing from an amazing pond of amazing entrepreneurs. It's a great community. I've had a lot of success. I mean, my fund 1 is off the charts, and we only did 36 investments, and I'm sitting on a unicorn 3 years in on the fund that could 2x the entire fund if I liquidate.
Wow. Good for you. Well, that's funny, Brian.
It's a great place to invest.
I did not know that was not a setup for the audience. That was not a setup
For the audience. He had no idea
I might have to invest
a
in your
YC fund.
Send me the docs.
Yeah, I'll send you the docs. Yeah. No, it's about half of what we do. Yeah, we love the community. They're just so good at batch processing amazing entrepreneurs and sending them out with crazy amounts of traction. And then the trick is like, which ones do I have to invest in now? Which ones can I pass on and invest in later?
Right.
You almost want to invest in all of them, frankly.
Yeah.
Because out of 150 companies, there's probably 100 companies I would want to write a check into, like as an investor, because I see everything else outside of YC too. And it's like if you're going to hire an investment banker, you're going to go to Stanford or Wharton or Harvard, and you're going to fish from that top 1% pool. And YC is basically
That's what it is.
That's so funny you said that. Like it totally was unplanned.
Yes, it was.
But yeah, it's about half of what we do. And we're not unique there. There's a bunch of other great funds, and I've had most of them on the podcast actually to talk about YC, and it's a great place to invest. The only thing is the valuations are starting to creep up.
Yes, they are.
Yes, they are. Yeah. I'd say the average now is 25 or 30. And when I got started, it was like 12 to 15. And so it's starting, but again, you're investing in companies.
But you're playing the power law. Let's be honest, right?
That's it. But the best thing is when you get in pre-YC. So you get in at 5, 10 cap, and then they get into YC, and now you have a 30 cap markup. You know, cap adjusted, of course, it's not priced.
Right, of course, of course.
What trends are you most excited about right now that few people are talking about?
I think the value that will be created by AI outside AI is one of the subtle things I don't think people understand about why investing in small businesses in America is great. So the 30-year-old coming out of Harvard, Stanford is already tech savvy, tech comfortable, and they will be implementing this immediately into these companies to compete with their 65-year-old competitors who have no idea. And I think the opportunity for game-changing vis-a-vis their competition will be astounding. So I am extremely excited about that.
And it's the same thing that's happening in startups, right?
Yeah.
The companies are growing faster than ever. I'm seeing companies get to $1 million of ARR
Oh yeah.
by the time they leave YC. They went from 0 to $1 million of ARR in
Yeah,
months, 2 months, 3
it's
months.
crazy.
The amount of growth
And with
and their
the
second.
number of people, right? Like they're doing it with so few
Oh, it's like 3
resources. Yeah.
people. I see
This is an
founders
extraordinary time.
not even raise money, and they start raising money at $1 million because they're like, "Oh, we're growing super fast. We just 10x revenue in 9 months. We haven't raised any money yet. We're at 800,000 of ARR, 1 million of ARR, and I think we need to like kind of build some infrastructure around this growth, you know." And that's when they raise.
Yeah.
So it's a whole different, like you talked about back, 20, 30 years ago, 2 or 3, 5 million just to get your website up. And now it's like, well, don't even come talk to me unless you have revenue.
Right. No, that's what I mean when I say, like, I was like, huh, this game has changed. It's cool. But I like your
It's very
approach as I've
different.
learned about it. But yeah,
Yeah, it's a little different. Yeah. You got to move very quickly
that's
too
right.
as an investor. But I want to circle back to the other comment you made about small businesses. Why it's a great time is AI, there's all these second and third order economic knock-on effects, right? Where now all these small businesses in general can run more capital efficiently. And that's just not startups. It is your chain of
Yeah,
washes.
it's your
It is your
plumbers, your med
accounting
spas, your
firms.
dental clinics, your street clinic. I mean, it really is going to be the most exciting, interesting next 10 years. These next 10
Yeah.
years, I get
So much
so
fun.
much fun.
But
Like
yeah. Best
that's why
time to
I'm
be an
doing that.
investor, best time to
You
be
didn't
alive.
even ask, you did ask me, and really at the end, that's a good conclusion, which is this is why I'm doing it. I want to be able to watch this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really, really good time to be an investor. What keeps you up at night?
The disparity between the rich and the poor, the dislocation of the worker, the change that's happening faster than humans can process it, the lack of civility, the lack of tolerance. Those are, we're losing what keeps humanity together, and we've got to figure that out.
Same. I share all those concerns. And it seems to coincide with technological and economic revolutions that we're kind of in.
Yeah.
You saw this, back in the 20s and 30s. You saw this in the 1800s. I think you're going to probably see it with AI. There's going to be a lot of dislocation. We have to manage that well.
Yeah,
But I think if we do it well, what's on the other side is amazing.
I totally agree. Yeah. But if we don't, that'll unfortunately be amazing in a different way.
Last question. What do you want your legacy to be?
I've always, probably from my Buddhist training, never held myself in. I mean, the notion of a legacy is kind of funny to me. At some point in the world,
Yeah. You know what's funny is nobody will remember you in 1,000 years.
I mean,
Right.
yeah, that's how I feel. Like literally.
That's a very Buddhist
But
philosophical
that's
outlook.
true.
Yeah.
It's
It is.
true.
Yeah.
And so
Impermanence.
my legacy is only about really one thing. Did I leave the earth being a kind person? Did I hopefully impact people positively? Did my daughter feel that I was there for her? And most of the time, because certainly not always, I was a good dad. That's my legacy. I'd love to, the reason I want to make money is to give it away. No one's going to remember me in 1,000 years. And that's probably optimistic, by the way. I think it's way shorter than that. So
Yeah, there's this YouTube video I watched. It was like "The Last Person to Remember You" was the title of it.
that's great.
I was like, it's some 150 years, your great grandchild like dies, and that's it. That was the last person ever had a thought of you alive. That was pretty amazing. Well, John, I really enjoyed you coming on. Thanks. It was great to get to know you.
Yeah, let's do a follow-up call on some things we talked about. I really have
Oh yeah,
enjoyed this conversation as well, and look forward to spending more time with you. And if I can ever be helpful or of service, please let me know.
same.